what really feels good and is an enduring good, not a sugar high good. In Silicon Valley, I was in the sugar high good land, where all of the, private jet world and stuff. That's a sugar high good, not an enduring good. An enduring good is where there's a smile on people's faces.
Hi, my name is Senka Caro, and I'm founder of LightNet, and my purpose is to expand what we believe is possible. We are here with Steve Farrell, the co-founder of Humanity's team. They're an incredible organization that has masterclasses, courses, workshops with leaders all over the world, scientists, healers, thought leaders, and they have a goal called Changing Humanity's Future Initiative. And by 2040, they want everyone in the world to know that we are one.
My calling is the big agenda, I'll call it, which is my true self, which is the world around me, which is, there's no such thing as a separated self. I don't want to go down rabbit holes here, but the notion that myself is this body is not correct. So Albert Einstein, 103 years ago said the greatest illusion in the world is the illusion of separation. So this isn't New Age thinking at all. This is actually scientists are weighing in on this in a massive way, especially from quantum physics. So once I started tuning in to the big agenda, which is the world around me, and really was coming from a place of connection with the divine, which is the one, right, that animates all of life, but is omnipresent. So that means that the planet and the 8 billion people and the animal and plant life is a part of this oneness too. Once I started tuning into that and putting my energy into creating health and well-being for that, that's where the wind was at my back, the synchronicities happened, the miracles came, the resources showed up, and more. How do I help people to see this oneness in the world? This one, again, is a much easier thing now than 21 years ago. 21 years ago, of course, mystics down through the ages, right? Hippocrates and Plato in about 450 BCE, so 2,500 years ago, shared there's one consciousness, there's one being of which we're all a part. And then, of course, there are many leaders down through the ages who have shared these very same teachings. But now, in these last couple decades, the scientists are coming in, the research is coming in. Nobel Prize for Physics in October of 2023 for entanglement. You look up the definition of entanglement. What is it? Entanglement is saying that you've got two things that could be hundreds of light years apart on different sides of the cosmos that are with no physical connection at all, that are deeply affecting each other. So it's this throw a pebble in a pond and there's a ripple out kind of effect thing going on. What quantum physicists now are saying, including Nassim Haramein with his Resonance Science Foundation, is where he has his unified field research now out on the table, that this was the work Einstein was doing in his latter years, says everything actually physical and non-physical, from protons and atoms to cosmological objects, galaxies, physical and non-physical, and everything in between is a part of this unified field. It's one thing. Another way of saying it is there's a universal consciousness that is animating all of life, right? We've heard these things. So science is now standing firmly on this ground that the mystics have shared. The bridge is fully built between spirituality and science. So how does it feel, and what's the difference when we live as one? Let me share. I work, Humanity's team creates all these transformational education programs and master classes. And so we work with the mediums. We work with the near-death experience community. So Suzanne Giesman, James Von Prague, again, the NDE community that are talking about this afterlife and even communicating with the afterlife, right? And we've been exposed to this for years and years and years. So this notion then of when we transition to a non-physical being, that there's this container that is deeply connected, that's loving, that is living in its pure essence or pure basis, that is pure love. This is brought into our awareness all day long in the humanities team. These are the master classes that we create. One of the books that was written by our faculty was about a heaven on earth. So living into this oneness where we understand the afterlife is that. It's pure love, it's pure light. It is a container of oneness where there is no sense of separation, such as what we experience when we're in a body. Helps to inform this whole aspect of living in a body as one, where we understand that's where we came from. And also, as we look at what life is about, and the co-founder of Humanity's team, Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the 9 Conversations with God books, and of course the Conversations with God books share life as a turnstile, right? That we're in the non-physical realm, and then we say, it's not enough for me to just know that I'm pure love and that I'm one. I want to be that. I want to feel that. And then the divine says, oh, you want to, so the only way to be that and feel that is you're going to have to go into this realm of the physical where there's darkness, and then you're being that because it's not around you in many cases, right? And we say, yeah, that's what I want. So then we come down and embody. Well, just as that little story suggests in this turnstile, the whole reason we embodied is we wanted to be that. And where there's an absence of light, we wanted to be the light, right? Which is to feel as one, which is to say we're open-hearted, which is to be in this place of connection, which is to be in this place of service, in this place of support, which, by the way, feels so good. Okay, and maybe this is the most important part of what I'm sharing is we want to do what feels good, right? From the time we were a kid. What really feels good and is an enduring good, not a sugar high good. In Silicon Valley, I was in the sugar high good land, where all of the, a private jet world and stuff. That's a sugar high good, not an enduring good. An enduring good is where there's a smile on people's faces. There's some awareness that they have through the work you're doing, some impact, some level of support, where they feel that. And then that feels really good. It feels really good to do that kind of work. It's an easier thing to follow than one might think. So here's again how it happened for me. One is when that Silicon Valley world was going on, and like I was on a private jet and in a private ski area, especially the private ski area, which was just really over the top. This is the one where Bill Gates and all of those people that are cloistered the ski area they belong to. So it's gated and it's just the level of luxury is off the charts. And when I was there with Stephanie, my wife, the level of cognitive dissonance for me was extreme. Yeah, this incredible luxury, but what am I doing here? And with all that's going on in the world, is this where I'm supposed to be? So that's what I experienced, is a cognitive dissonance where I was not doing the things that I'm doing now, that were like a strong tap on the shoulder of there's another vision that I'm to serve. There's a journey that I'm to take. So cognitive dissonance comes in, the tap on the shoulder. Some say it goes to being slammed by a 2x4 if we don't follow the tap on the shoulder. I believe that's probably true. I always followed the tap on the shoulder, so I never got hit by the 2x4. But and then the calling is just, so feel into this. It's a calling like when the partner that you're with now, the thing that you felt about that partner being right for you, the home or apartment that you're in, the thing that you felt that it was right for you to be in this home that was going to become your home, the geography that you moved to, the thing that you felt. So I'm coming back to the still small voices. There's a feeling, there's a sense about it, there's a trueness about it, there's a clarity about it. I don't have to really think hard about it. In fact, it's more of a feeling than a thought, of just a feeling that this is right. This is what I'm supposed to do. These are the people I'm supposed to work with. When new resources, new people show up, usually there'll be a fairly strong element of this is the right person, this to proceed with Humanity's team as we're scaling this organization. Or or the contrary of this is a good person, an interesting person, this isn't really a fit. The still small voice is really, there's a clarity in terms of a feeling for me that creates, it's like driving a car and you have guardrails on both sides of you. There's guardrails. I can feel it when I'm getting off base or when I'm on target. The advice I have is that there's a bridge, and it's a pretty simple bridge to follow. And what I'm finding is that many people actually stumble here because there's, as we talk about conscious living and the beauty of it, where we're supporting other people and the planet, and we get up and we're alive because of this work we're doing that's serving people on the planet. You know, who wouldn't find that to be exciting? I find almost everybody I talk to says, that's incredibly exciting. But they say, but I've got to pull in a paycheck. There's certain income that I need to draw. And I'm not sure how to get from where I am now to that picture that you're painting for me here, Steve. So all I can share in response to that is the way it worked for me. I had to build a bridge too. I had to build it from Silicon Valley, where I was a founder and the CEO of two companies. And then I left Silicon Valley, and now I'm in Boulder, and now I'm work with all these amazing people in Humanity's team who are my partners and colleagues. I just had to trust the process. There was a still small voice that has guided me my whole life. And that still small voice has really been critical all along. So, but in those moments there in Silicon Valley where I was losing my strong desire to just be a business person, and then the strong desire to follow my spiritual calling, this bigger self calling, was coming up high, then it was especially important that I follow the steps. And the steps were that I had to leave all of the things that had served me. So sell the businesses, leave the incredible business association that I was part of, leave Silicon Valley, that whole venture world, and then open myself to what would come. It was 18 months between the time I closed everything off in the technology world and the launch of Humanity's team with Neil Donald Walsh, who was the primary co-founder with me. We launched in Wilsonville, Oregon in June 2003. For those 18 months to just really stay true to the calling, which was, there was uncertainty. I didn't even know that we were going to launch Humanity's team for a year and a half, but I knew there was some spiritual calling that I was to serve. And it gave me time to sort of get myself relaxed and in balance and really completely empty so it could fill up with what I would need to do when we launched Humanity's team so many years ago. Yeah, again, for me, it's so clear. I really think it's clear. I think the problem here is that our small agendas start coming in of I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to experience something that really doesn't have to do with this bigger agenda that we're being called to. And I think that's the real problem, is we just start chasing these other rainbows that really have nothing to do with the real reason that we're here. We don't tune out, in other words, that worldly noise well enough. And just going a little deeper with the worldly noise thing, there are people around us. I've got 6 siblings and a mother who love me dearly, as all of our brothers and sisters and parents do. But they're not on a conscious journey. And as they love you dearly, the things that they're telling you to do often are just way off target. I can tell you, when I left IBM to start my businesses, I was like, what are you doing? You know, you've got the golden ticket here in this company that you work for. And then, if you think that one was bad, when I left Silicon Valley and sold everything and left everything and moved to Boulder, people really thought I'd lost my mind. And I lost most of the friends that I had, actually, because this whole notion of non-separation and oneness and diversity and unity seemed very out there for people in the early 2000s. So it does require real discipline. The still small voice, though, is clear, was very clear for me. I was not missing what I was to do. It's just that there are these distractions that are these other well-meaning people that are suggesting other things, to be, I'll call it sheeple, just kind of follow the pack. And I knew I wasn't supposed to follow the pack. My single biggest struggle in following my path and my purpose, that's a tough one because there've been many things here, including things that I experienced in Silicon Valley, which is why I wrote a book about it called A New Universal Dream, to kind of bring it all in. But I would say that when Neil and I started Humanity's team, it was over 20 years ago. And now when we talk about oneness and diversity and unity and divine presence, divinity, people get it. There are many people on this journey now, and it's beginning to mainstream. And it's not, you don't get the cross-eyed look, and your friends don't pull, just say, I'm out of here. This guy, is not my friend anymore. Today, this is not a terribly challenging thing to do. In the early 2000s, this was very challenging, and people did look at me cross-eyed, and people even that respected me from my business career really didn't want to be in touch because of this spiritual calling. So I'm a very outgoing person. I've had lots of friends all of my life. I grew up with lots of friends. It was always easy for me to make friends, and I went through more than 10 years where I didn't have a lot of friends because of the spiritual calling that I was following. In that same time frame, we didn't have a business model that was working, and we had people that needed income. And I was the executive director and co-founder, and I needed to find a way to get income to these people. So it was very challenging in lots of ways there in the early years of Humanity's team. So what do I say to people who say, I don't know what to do? One of the things that was downloaded to us in Humanity's team about 8 months ago is what we're calling the Galileo moment, which kind of speaks to this, of where people are saying, I don't know what to do. Okay, so here's the Galileo moment, as it was downloaded to us. Where you go and do the research on Galileo. Galileo was a scientist and a astronomer, a physicist back in the early 1600s. Okay, and it was a time when the belief system of the whole planet was that the Earth was the center of the universe, that the whole cosmos, the whole universe was revolving around the Earth. And this was canon, which is to say it's not just some little understanding. This was central to the whole way the church and the world was living its life. It's also a dangerous time because you had the Roman and Spanish Inquisition. We know what kinds of terrible things were happening with all of that, right? So Galileo then, who's Italian, builds his telescope based on what the Dutch had shared about telescopes, and he's observing the heavens above, and he sees through his research, oh my gosh, the Earth is not the center of the universe. That it's in a solar system where we're revolving around the sun with other planets, not at the center of the universe at all. So he simply shares his research with the public at large. Wow, this was a very dangerous thing to do, and he got himself in a lot of trouble. He was immediately put under house arrest, and he was told, you need to recant right now this research that you've brought forward. He did, to save his life. He remained under house arrest anyway, but he was not killed because of that. And it was too late for the world at large to just forget that the Earth was in fact not the center of the universe. There were other telescopes where people were observing the same thing, that what Galileo had shared was true. And so the whole world changed, really, from this research that was done. And one man paid the price for that research, Galileo, who was under house arrest to the end of his life. Now, when the Earth was put in its rightful place, which was as part of the solar system, of course it becomes warmed by the light of the sun, right, in its rightful place, which was not its rightful place, where it was said to be the center of the whole universe. Now, what's very interesting, I'm going to bring in the parallel here, of course, because I'm calling this the Galileo moment, is, so what's going on now? that has anything to do with that in the early 1600s? Well, you probably are already seeing what I'm going to go to, is we've been talking about the separated self, right? That scientists are saying there's no separated self. Spiritual leaders, mystics, even the good book, there's no separated self. Everything is deeply interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. There is that concept that we grew up with, that we all were taught in science class, Newtonian, Darwinian, you're separate, you're a body delivered to the earth by your parents, you'll go 6 feet under at the end of your life. It's not true. That in fact, we're a part of this, this omnipresence, this universal consciousness, right, that has everlasting life. We just go back and forth between the physical and non-physical. Most of us know that about this conscious journey. Most of us also know there's a kinetic energy, even in our sleep, right? So where we're being affected and we affect the world around us, right? There is no separated self at all. So just like Galileo, who was one man and sort of took this all on his shoulders back in the 1600s, now we don't have one person that can just stand up like Galileo and say, hey, there's no such thing as a separated self, right? It doesn't work that way. In today's world, one person can't do it. The reason you're actually watching this program right now is I believe you're one of the people that's being invited to be a modern day Galileo, if you will, as on this conscious journey, to share your truth and live into that truth. This body isn't who I am. It's that I'm occupying a body. I'm a spiritual being occupying a body, and there's a kinetic energy that's impacting people all over the planet, even in a sleep state. And where we understand that, where we live into that, I think that's where our still small voice is leading all of us anyway, to that big agenda, to that bigger self, living into that bigger self, putting aside the smaller self agendas. And where we live into it, this is where we find this amazing, what I call delicious life. I call it's like floating on a raft. And not that it's a magic blanket. I've shared their challenges here. But this is where we find this incredibly delicious way of living our life, where we're open-hearted, where we listen well, where we see the sacred in each other and the earth, where we're a loving presence in the way that we're all guided to be. All of these things that make life delicious in our homes, in our workplace, in our community. This is where it really all comes together. And here's the beautiful thing is we're somebody, because it started with the question of what if people don't get it? What should they do? So, and I'm talking about how we can live into it and it creates a delicious life and so on. But now here's the really amazing thing. Not only is it a delicious life for us, we all know about tipping point, right? 100 monkey. When enough of us start living this way, microcosm and macrocosm are linked. 8 to 10% of us, bam, the world starts reflecting this whole new reality, wars, the way we're treating our earth like a refrigerator, the climate change, extreme weather, all of these things, polarities where it's red state, blue state, boom, there's a remedy, healing remedy, all the way right down the line, right? Because when we're conscious, we don't do those things. Just like Martin Luther King says, darkness doesn't heal darkness. Only light can do that. We all become an emanation. We're emanations of light anyway, but where we're living consciously, we know that, and each of us become emanations of that light, each of us in our own way. And then kids and future generations inhabit a beautiful planet, which is, of course, a great concern for people all over the planet right now of what's going to happen to my kids? What will future generations see who inhabit this earth? I'll share just Humanity's team did something with Neil Donald Walsh, again, who's our co-founder. We created an initiative called Changing Humanity's Future, and then it has this Galileo moment as a component part, where we went out and we brought all the wisdom together that brings in oneness and diversity and unity and divinity and all of these things, including the science. And we put it in a masterclass. And then we did something that we may never do again because there's a team that's on payroll. But we said this wisdom is so important, we're going to let people name their own price. So they can go through for free if they don't have any budget. Because the wisdom that we're talking about here, which we're calling conscious journey, is that important. That we just want to get it out there. and ideally have all 8 billion people on the planet go through. It's a masterclass called The Art and Science of Living Consciously. Neil Donald Walsh and I created it. There was about 6 months of research, and then it was recorded, and then there's mentoring and all these things. It's on the Humanities team website. That's humanitystem.org. And you can go up into programs and pull down the master classes. You'll see The Art and Science of Living Consciously, and you can name your own price and go through for free if you don't have any budget. So our true self, which is this whole world around us, this big agenda, this bigger self, not the little self that I grew up with, that was Steve Farrell, just this body. But once I made that decision that was not who I was at all, that the bigger self is who I'm serving, and then did my very best to serve that bigger self by doing things like in Humanities team, creating these educational programs and so on. In my understanding is that actually this is true for each person and for everybody, and there's actually no, there are no favorites that are played at all, because we're actually all equal emanations of the one. And all we have to do is turn to that big agenda and serve it to the best of our ability, not even excellent all the time, not perfect all the time, just to the best of our ability. And when we do that, then again, you will, it's not a magic carpet ride. There'll be challenges. I've actually been in urgent care years ago when things were really hard. I'd be in urgent care quite a bit. So I'm not trying to say this is an easy magic carpet ride, but you will go to your destiny. The resources will show up, the people, the financial resources, and other things that just make life real nice for your family. Like there's another miracle I don't need to tell here right now, but of how this home that my family lives in, and we've been in for 16 years in Boulder, just showed up for us at a price we could afford. There have been many miracles like that. All we have to do is serve the big agenda. Just serve the big agenda, not the little agendas that we have of I want this little thing or that little thing, and then it all happens. So by me living in my purpose, how does that affect people around me? Yeah, and how do they affect me? So yeah, the whole thing. Well, let me share a story. So from my home, years ago, Stephanie and I went through a tough time. There were some real challenges with this home. It's a beautiful home, but there were toxins, and her health got really messed up for a good while. So did my sons, because they have a DNA, a body type that couldn't rid itself of toxins very easily. So she was incredibly, and my son Dylan both were incredibly challenged for a period of years. So, and that landed us in front of therapists that were conscious, to kind of talk about things. Now, in that therapy, as we talked about conscious living and stuff, the therapist said, so as you're talking about loving each other and so on, how often is that expressed? And I thought about it, and I said, maybe not as much as I would have liked for it to be expressed. Well, that really got something going in terms of sharing, love you, and doing, and not just saying it, but planning nice things, kind of loving, supportive kinds of things. And that has spread over these years and years. It's a beautiful thing. Also, with my coworkers, I'm not sure exactly how this whole thing got started in its fullness, because in the early years it was quite challenging, honestly. But now, if you were to sit down with my colleagues and partners, they would share what I'm sharing, which is it's just a beautiful place to be. People don't have sharp elbows. It's a caring environment. It's a thoughtful environment. It's an environment where people really are grateful for each other's contributions. It's a truly conscious workplace. These things can take time to really create and gain momentum. But as they come into their fullness, it's a beautiful thing, and you never want to go back to these old, fear-based environments that all of us are probably so familiar with. What would the world be like if everybody was living into their big agenda? Well, so this is why I'm doing this program and all of the programs that I'm doing is, and why we do the work that we do in Humanities team is, we've experienced the other side of this. As I mentioned, I grew up with the Darwinian, Newtonian, I'm a separated self, it's this body, with this roller coaster life. Today's a really bad day, today's a good day, this kind of thing. Fear-based environments where your boss says, you will do this or else. We've all experienced that, right? It doesn't feel good. It creates a painful life. We can even feel as a victim where it goes on too long. Some people feel as a victim their whole life. So what do you want then in this bigger self that we're talking about? What you want is for every person you could consider this like we're cells in a superorganism, right, is one metaphor we could use. The omnipresence, the life around us, the 8 billion people on the planet. What you want is for every cell, which is to say every person, to open to and experience the things that we're talking about, where we leave behind that fear-based work environment, the separated self thing that it feels lonely and fatigued, right? We know anxiety, sometimes leading to depression, disempowerment. We all know so many people that are still experiencing these things. So we don't want that. Is there anything more beautiful or more important than this work that we call the conscious journey, where it's about just inviting people to live into this bigger self and to become, to live in this Galileo moment, to become one of those people who says, I understand it, I get it, I believe it, and I'm going to live fully into it, and I'm going to find that delicious life for myself, and in so doing, I'm also going to help the whole planet awaken and live into its destiny, which is a destiny that has a sustainable, compassionate, and flourishing type destiny for people on the planet. So is there anything more, any invitation that's more important or more inviting than that?